Okay, good afternoon, everyone. And I want to thank you for joining me today for this seminar in order to learn about the political process. So, I normally do this seminar at least once a year because I want the community to understand exactly what it is when we talk about the political process, what it entails, what it is comprised of, and exactly how you can participate in the political process. Because I feel like it's very important not only for us to be voters, but for us to be educated voters, as well as making sure that we are participating in things dealing with our local government, state government, as well as federal government. Because as a citizen, you have that right. You have the right to email your local representatives, state representatives, and members of Congress. You have the right to make a phone call to them. You have a right to visit them in their offices. You have a right to write letters to them. You have the right to engage with them. And with that engagement, that is the power that we have when we make sure that we hold our elected officials accountable. So in this particular workshop today, we are going to go over the different government entities, such as the federal government, state government, as well as our local government, which is city and county. And we'll talk about different things that they are responsible for. So I'm going to go ahead and get into it here by sharing my screen with you. So give me a second to bring that up. Okay, so let's get into this slideshow. So what exactly is the political process, you may be asking yourself? So this is the process of the formulation and administration of public policy, usually by interaction between social groups and political institutions, or between political leadership and public opinion. That might not make a lot of sense to you right now, but as we delve a little bit more into this, you'll understand how these things fit together, how public opinion fits into political leadership and political institutions and social groups, and how all of those work together in the political process. So let's talk about the federal government. With the federal government, when we talk about elections, this is mostly what people are familiar with when thinking about voting. Okay, so lots of people are involved in the federal process when it comes to voting for our officials, but not a lot of people pay attention to our state and local government. And you'll hear me say this a couple of times, but people like to think about power from the top down, but really it's from the bottom up. And I'll talk some more about that when we get to the local part of this presentation. So let's talk about the three branches of government. The three branches of government are executive, legislative, and judicial. And to explain a little bit more about these branches, the executive is the president, okay? It consists of the president, his advisors, departments, and agencies, which is the White House and federal agencies. And the president is responsible for enforcing the laws of the land, okay? The executive branch is responsible for enforcing the laws of the land. The legislative branch consists of the House and Senate, which is what we refer to as Congress. They make laws, declare war, regulate interstate and foreign commerce, and control taxing and spending policies, okay? So legislative, House and Senate, which we refer to as Congress, they make the laws. The judicial consists of the US Supreme Court and federal judicial center, and the judicial branch of the government interprets the law, okay? So judicial is the Supreme Court and federal judicial system, and they interpret the law. Now, one of the things that people are not necessarily familiar with is the Electoral College, okay? So when we say popular vote, that's one vote as a citizen. But when we talk about the Electoral College, this was created as a compromise between the president being elected by members of Congress versus being elected by popular vote. Now, at the time, what they were concerned about is that the states that had slaves, if they counted that particular population, they would end up holding a majority of the states that did not have slaves. So this was created as a compromise for that, which gives us 538 electors to this day. And a majority of those, which is 270 votes, have to be cast in order for someone to be elected as president, okay? So our equals the number of members in our congressional delegation, is one for each House member in the House, and then 2 senators, okay? So, which gives us a total number of 16, okay? So those are our congressional members that vote in the Electoral College for president. So we have the popular vote, which is separate, that's one vote. And then you have the Electoral College, which is actually used in order to elect the president. So this is why we pay really close attention to those numbers. There are a lot of debates now about whether or not we still need the Electoral College because of how and why it was created. I myself really don't see it going away anytime soon, but there have been people that made the argument that we need to do away with the Electoral College and just focus on the popular vote. So let's talk about presidential powers. What exactly are the quote unquote powers that the president has? Okay, the president has the right to sign or veto legislation, which is administer the law. Now, when we say that, legislation that's been introduced and passed by the House and Senate, it goes on to the president for his vote. His veto can be overridden, but it has to be by a 2/3 vote only in both the House and Senate. Right now, we have Congress that has a majority, a very slim majority of Republicans in the House, and a very slim majority of Democrats in the Senate. So it should be interesting how things go this particular legislative session to see how that balance of power will play out with legislation that is introduced on either side. The president also commands the armed forces. He can ask for written opinions of his cabinet. He can convene or adjourn Congress, grant reprieves and pardons, appoint judges, ambassadors, high-ranking officials, and receive ambassadors from other countries. So let's go into Congress, okay? So we have the president, who is the executive branch that enforces the law. We have Congress, which is the legislative branch that makes the laws, okay? So we have the House of Representatives that has 435 members. This is based on state population, okay? These members are elected and serve for 2 years. We have the Senate composed of 100 members, and each state gets 2 members elected to the Senate, and they serve for 6 years. So if you are curious about who our local congressional representatives are, we have Drew Ferguson, who is in the House of Representatives, and he is a Republican. And we also have Senator Raphael Warnock and Senator John Ossoff, who are both Democrats. Okay, so this is congressional makeup right now. Now let's get into lobbyists and special interest groups. Okay, so lobbyists and special interest groups, and this is what I was referring to earlier when I was talking about exactly how public opinion and these social groups and political institutions work together. Okay, so lobbyists and special interest groups, they have advocacy with the intention of influencing decisions made by the government. Lobbyists and special interest groups can be other legislators, constituents, or organized groups. States have lobbying requirements where the lobbyists and special interest groups have to register and report on their particular activities, such as the money that they raise, laws that are written. These groups can essentially control the debate. They can spin the media, control the web, they can engineer a following, they have money to buy credibility, they can sponsor think tanks and consult with critics. So when we talk about who has the power when it comes to government entities, lobbyists and special interest groups hold a very large percent of that power. When you're talking about special interest groups and lobbyists, you can think about like the Sheriff's Association, police unions, think about, it's one on the tip of my tongue that I'm forgetting about right now. Oh, I can't remember it. I'll come back to it. But you're thinking about organized organizations and unions and even businesses that pour their money into certain legislation and things like that. But it is definitely a money game. And normally the people with the biggest purse strings can control the debate. They can control what legislation is written and have that in their favor as well. Let's talk about how laws are made. So these are the ways that laws are actually created, okay? When we talk about these special interest groups, they may put a bug in the ear of a representative or a senator who will have that legislation crafted, which is then assigned to a committee and then put on a calendar to be voted on. It is then debated or amended if the representatives or senators find any issues with the particular language or things that are included in the proposed law. So you need a simple majority in the House. You need 218 out of 435 votes for it to move on to the Senate. In the Senate, it will then be assigned to a committee, also put on the calendar to be voted on, debated or amended. You need a simple majority in the Senate. 51 out of 100 can be sent to a conference committee, then final approval and sent to the president, who has 10 days to sign or veto the legislation. And as I said before, if he decides to veto, he can send it back for a conference committee for the language to be cleaned up, or the veto can be overridden by a 2/3 vote only if it happens both in the House and the Senate. Okay, so now we are at the Supreme Court. So we talked about the executive branch, which is the president that enforces the law. We had the legislative branch, which is composed of the Senate and House, referred to as Congress, who make the laws. And now we are at the legislative branch, which is composed of the Supreme Court, who interprets the law, okay? So the Supreme Court is composed of 9 judges that are appointed by the president. You have 1 Chief Justice and 8 associates, okay? They receive about 10,000 petitions a year, which is a lot. So in order to decide which of those cases that they will actually hear, they have a rule of 4, which means that 4 of the 9 justices have to vote in order to accept a case, okay? So they hear about 75 to 85 cases a year. There can also be what's called a writ of certiorari, or some people call it a writ of certiorari. And that is where the Supreme Court orders lower court to send up a record of a case for review. So they do a judicial review of a lower court's decision, okay? The Supreme Court hears cases that affect the country as a whole. Normally they hear cases that clarify legal issues, that have constitutional impact, and that answer important legal questions. When we're talking about Supreme Court decisions, these decisions establish precedent. So it doesn't matter what a lower court has said, if a case goes up to the Supreme Court is the final decision. And once they render decision, it becomes a legal example that all of the lower courts must follow. Okay, so they are the end all, be all when it comes to that. You may also hear something about stays of execution. So when someone has been ordered to be executed and they petition the Supreme Court for a stay, 5 of the 9 justices have to agree on that particular stay, which would render a decision for a person's execution to not go forward. So we have a couple of cases that have been in the news recently where the Supreme Court has issued a stay for somebody that was supposed to be executed. Now let's move on to state government. Okay, so with our state elected officials, of course, I'm just going over mostly the ones that are deemed the most important. I won't go too much into nitpicking about the elected officials and who they are. But of course, we have Governor Brian Kemp, Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones, Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, Attorney General Chris Carr, Commissioner of Agriculture Tyler Harper, Commissioner of Insurance John King, State School Superintendent Richard Woods, Commissioner of Labor Bruce Thompson, the Public Service Commission, which consists of 5 different districts, and Trisha Pridemore serves as the chairwoman, and Tim Eckel serves as the vice chairman. So if you're looking here, you see a lot of R's because we have Republican leadership in all state offices. We have what's called a state government trifecta, where there is a majority of Republicans. You have the governor's office that is Republican, the House that is Republican, the Senate that is Republican, and that's called a trifecta because they hold a majority in all of those positions. Now, in talking about the Public Service Commission, there has been a lot of controversy with them lately. They actually just, Governor Kemp just appointed Fitz Johnson, who is their first Black member, but is also Republican. There have been a couple of court cases that were decided because this particular body of government has always been lily white until recently. However, they had deemed that the way that they're elected harms Black voters because Black voters are particularly at a disadvantage when it comes to them being able to elect these particular officials and they're being elected statewide. And it was been argued that that should not be the case, that they should actually come from these particular districts. Um, the most recent thing that was pointed out in these cases is that the chairwoman, Trisha Pridemore, and Tim Echols, who's the vice chair, actually had districts redrawn in order to leave out a particular challenger that was challenging one of the seats. So when they got one of the addresses they thought was hers, they drew her out of that district. Then when they found out they had the wrong address, they went back and drew her, drew another map that drew her out of the district with the new address. So there has been a lot of controversy surrounding this particular public service commission and the makeup of it and the things that they have done and continue to do, and how it disproportionately affects and disadvantages Black voters, and especially because this is the commission that deals with the utilities, Georgia Power and things like that. So, when our communities are overcharged, we definitely have a vested interest in being in a situation where we can voice our opinions and vote for people that are going to have our best interests at heart. And right now, that is not the case with the Georgia Public Service Commission. Okay. So we also have the Georgia State Senate, Georgia House of Representatives, Georgia District Attorneys. If you want to learn some more about the state elected officials, the website is legis.georgia.gov, and you can do a / for the House side of things or a / for the Senate side of things. And I'll actually play around with that a little bit in a minute, so you can just see how the website is set up and how you can navigate through it if you're curious and you want to go and do some research as well. Okay, so let's talk about the state level makeup of government. You have the governor. The House of the state of Georgia has 100 elected members. Okay, you have the speaker pro tem, the majority leader, and the minority leader. Okay, these officials are elected to 2-year terms. Right now, there are, okay, this is totally wrong. This is supposed to be flipped. I don't know how I missed that, but look over that. This should actually say that there are 98 Republican and 79 Democratic, because Republican are in the majorities, and then you have 3 vacant. So this is a typo. It should say 98 Republican and 79 Democratic members with 3 vacant, because the Republicans are in the majority. So I apologize for that. Should have caught that. The Senate has 56 elected members. You have the speaker pro tem, majority leader, minority leader. They're also elected to 2-year terms. Right now, there are 32 Republican, 23 Democratic, and 1 vacant. Okay, so again, state of Georgia has a trifecta. Governor's Republican, House majority Republican, Senate majority Republican. Okay, and our representatives for the House representatives are David Knight, who's a Republican, Karen Mathiak, who's a Republican, and the senator is Marty Hartman. Okay, one of the reasons why we emphasize making sure that we stay involved in not just voting for our congressional members and president, but also at the state level, because many of you may be aware or not that we had a lot of voter suppression bills that came through our state government, which is Senate Bill 202, which doesn't even allow for handing out of water when you're standing in line to vote. It cut the early voting times, definitely for a runoff. It also gave local entities the power to decide whether or not we would have Sunday voting. And here in Spalding County, we know how that played out. We no longer have Sunday voting as an option. And also House Bill 769, which was crafted by David Knight, Karen Mathiak, and Marty Harbin, which completely was a hostile takeover of our Board of Elections. So whereas before there was a Democratic majority, it is now a Republican majority. And I know you've heard me talk many, many times about this particular board. You've seen me speak at many, many meetings about the things that are going on with that particular board and with our elections supervisor as well. So I won't dwell on that too much. I could probably dedicate a whole workshop to our Board of Elections itself. But we'll talk about that at another time. So let's move on and talk about powers and privileges. Okay, so power to make state laws, restrict land to protect and preserve the environment and natural resources, form a state militia under the command of the governor of Georgia, expend public money, condemn or zone property, participate in tourism, control and regulate advertising. The special privileges that they have is that they cannot be arrested during a session or a committee meeting for treason, breach of peace, or a felony. And they're not liable for anything said in session or committee meetings. So a special caveat that they created for themselves in carrying out their duties as elected officials. So here's a list of state house committees. You have a ton of committees that deal with different areas and issues, from agriculture to judiciary, appropriations, banks and banking, reapportionment, which is something that we just went through with getting new maps drawn, defense and veterans affairs, economic development, tourism, motor vehicles, retirement, health and human services, public safety, homeland security, education, ethics, energy, utilities, communications, governmental affairs, and things of that nature, higher education, industry and labor, state planning, community affairs, insurance, small business development, intergovernmental coordination, ways and means, which is the committee that I actually worked for when I was at the state capitol, that deals with taxes. So that was a pretty awesome job for me. You have some of the same Senate committees as well that you see here: government oversight, judiciary, insurance, labor, education, ethics, finance, science and technology, transportation, urban affairs, things of that nature. All right, so now we're going to delve into city government. Okay, so we have a charter that is composed of city commissioners that are supposed to be nonpartisan, that are elected to 4-year terms. If you remember, a couple of years ago, we had a new charter drawn that would allow the citizens to elect a mayor, okay? And that mayor would serve for 4 years. Prior to that, they would have different city commissioners just rotate the responsibilities or title of mayor, but now we actually are able to vote for mayor, okay? The current mayor is Doug Holberg. These are the commissioners for District 1, Cynthia Reed Ward; District 2, Cora Flowers; 3, Holly Murray; 4, David Rock; 5, Truman Tinsley; and 6, Rodney McCourt, okay? So they pass ordinances, adopt budgets, appoint committees, hire city manager and legal counsel, such as the municipal judge, city attorney, solicitor for municipal court, and the clerk or registrar. The current city manager is Jessica O'Connor, and she is responsible for the day-to-day operations and appointing heads of the departments. Okay, so let's talk about the different departments. You have public works, which consists of waste and wastewater, city parks, streets, transportation, planning and development, planning and zoning, Main Street program, historic preservation, airport, administrative services, which is procurement, IT, finance, human resources, central services, which consists of solid waste, landfill, and recycling, electric, of course, utilities, electric services, and public safety, fire, police, code enforcement, municipal court. So with the city, they actually do every year they have what's called a Citizens Government Academy. And in attending that academy, you can actually learn about the different departments and their day-to-day operations. So you actually get to hang out with the Public Works Department. You actually get to hang out with finance and human resources and planning and development and learning the different things about how they operate their budgets and getting familiar with who is exactly the department head of each of those departments. The fire department actually has their own academy, and the police department actually has their own academy as well. So I would really encourage you, if you have the time, when they open those up for people to register, make sure that you take part, because we very rarely have people in our community that take part in those particular academies. But you learn so much, and you learn how things work, and you can actually put faces with names, so that if you're ever in need of speaking to someone, or you're advocating on behalf of someone, you actually have someone that you can reach out to. So I would encourage you all to make sure you get involved and register for those particular academies: the Citizens Government Academy, the Fire Academy, and the Police Academy as well. It's very, very, very beneficial. It's one night on a weekday, but you learn so much, and the information is invaluable. So the City of Griffin also has a lot of boards and committees, such as Environmental Council, Airport Authority, Development, Hospital, Historic Preservation Commission, Housing Authority, Main Street Program, Chamber of Commerce, Board of Health, Planning, Zoning, Transportation, Council on Aging, Business and Tourism, Downtown Council. They also do accept nomination forms in order for citizens to be appointed to these boards at the beginning of the year. And I also would encourage you to watch out for those as well, to get involved, because as it stands, even though we make up 50% of the population in the city, we do not have that representation on our boards and committees. So we can't expect for people to look out for us when they don't have a vested interest as we do. So we need to be on these boards and committees because we understand exactly what's going on in our communities, and we can help provide ideas and solutions for how we can make progressive decisions and make things better for those residents that live in our community. So here's a link if you wanted to look up the Griffin Charter and ordinances. So you can see all of the ordinances that have been implemented and that are on the books that apply to the city of Griffin. When you get time, it would be a good website to go to, because you can actually navigate through and see some things on the books that may surprise you. Some things that you may think that don't make any sense, but are a part of our ordinances. And you can also find the charter on there as well, if you want to do some research and look it up. But yeah, you will be amazed and amazed and surprised at what you find on these different books of the city and county government. Okay, so let's go into the county. So elected officials, you have county commissioner, sheriff, magistrate, juvenile, probate, state court judges and clerks, superior court clerks, tax commissioners, um, school board members, and the coroner. All right. So county commissioners issue ordinances, resolutions, project initiatives, and tax. For District 1, Gwen Flowers Taylor. District 2, James Dutton, who is the vice chair. 3, Rita Johnson. 4, Ryan Bolden. 5, Clay Davis, who is the chair. The county manager is Steve Ledbetter, who oversees day-to-day operations, advises the board, implements commission policies. I did not update this because I could not find the most recent numbers, but the last time I did this presentation about 2 years ago, they had 550 employees and they had a $47 million budget. But I'm pretty sure that has changed. So don't quote me on that. If I can get the new numbers, I'll definitely post them and update everyone. And of course, I won't spend too much time. You all know how I feel about Commissioner Dutton, but I won't delve too much into that right now. So departments: human resources, community development, which consists of planning and zoning, licensing, water authority, building permits and inspections, budget and finance, public safety, the tax commissioner and tax assessor, elections, and voter registration. And Spalding County also has boards and committees as well, some of the same of which the city of Griffin has, but they also have Spalding County Collaborative Authority for Family and Children, the Board of Elections Registration, and Animal Control Advisory Board, the Emergency Medical Services Advisory Council, Library Board of Trustees, Parks and Recreation Advisory Commission, water and sewage facilities, and things of that nature, as well as Department of Family and Children Services. Now, current tax commissioner Sylvia Hollums, the coroner Michael Fryer, sheriff Daryl Dix, clerk of Superior Court State Courts Debbie Brooks, the chief magistrate court judge is Rita Kavanaugh, probate court judge Jan Hunt, state court solicitor Patrick Shepard, state court judge Josh Stacker, district attorney Marie Broder, and our superior court judges Fletcher Sands, Rhonda Cruisinger, Scott Ballard, Benjamin Coker, and Ben Miller. Okay. Interesting thing about this is Rita Kavanaugh has been a magistrate court judge since, I don't know, probably forever, and has not had a challenger in probably forever. So a lot of these situations with local government, people continuously get elected over and over again because no one challenges them, and we allow these people to sit in these positions forever. And we shouldn't do that. We should never have a situation where we are not continuously challenging, even if the person has no hope of winning, but at least make them work for it and not just allow them to cruise back into these elected positions. All right, so let's move on to the school board. So the school board oversees the overall operation of all schools of the Griffin-Spalding County school system, provides adequate school facilities and personnel to meet the educational needs of Spalding County, establish the policies by which schools are to be administered. However, the administration of the educational programs and the conducting of school business shall be the responsibility of the employed superintendent of schools and staff. So some misunderstandings about what the board does and what the superintendent does is confusing to some people, but the board is more involved with policy, okay? and the superintendent and his staff is more involved with the day-to-day operations of the school system. Okay. So for Board of Education, District 1, we have Mr. Centel Brown, who is the chair. District 2, Will Doss, vice chair. District 3, Zachary Holmes. District 4, Barbara Jo Cook. And District 5, Sue McDonald. The current superintendent is Keith Simmons. Okay, so I know I went over a lot. This was probably a lot to digest, and I did go through it kind of fast. So I will review just so we can remember what we went over. Okay, so we have the federal government, state government, and our local government, which consists of city and county. We have the 3 branches of government. We have the executive branch, which consists of the president that enforces the law. We have the legislative branch, which consists of the Senate and House of Representatives, and we refer to them as Congress, and they actually make the laws. We have the judicial branch, which consists of the Supreme Court, federal court, and their job is to interpret the law. Okay. So if we're thinking about that on terms of state level, then the executive branch would be the governor, the legislative branch would be the House of Representatives and Senate for the state of Georgia, and the judicial branch would be the state Supreme Court. Okay. In thinking of it in those terms, if we're thinking about local, let's say the executive branch is the city commissioners. Same thing for county commissioners would be the executive branch. So just to put it in, I guess what we consider layman's terms to help you understand it better and to connect the dots. Okay. So everything federal, state has their local counterpart when you think about it in those terms as well. Now, I did say that I was going to go back and show you a couple things. And before I do that, I want to just talk about this really, really cool tool that is available to use called the Empowered app. You can download it in Android, the Android store, as well as Apple Store. It helps you get connected to your local elected officials, as well as the state and federal level. You can search by name, jurisdiction, or issues, monitor the term and election dates of your elected officials. You can contact them through the app. And you can also use your interest to connect with other organizations that are doing work in the community, other nonprofit organizations, and things like that. And it's really, really, really helpful tool because a lot of people do not know who their local officials are. They don't know. They don't know how to contact them. But this tool actually puts that power at your fingertips through an app that you can utilize that will help you actually be able to know who those officials are and reach out to them. You can also see what issues they are connected to. And when I say that, I'll show you a little bit more about that later, but it's worth noting and worth researching to see where they stand on certain issues. Okay, so in registering to vote, you can go to the Secretary of State's website, which is sos.georgia.gov. And under registering to vote, to register to vote, you must be a citizen of the United States, a legal resident of Georgia, and of the county in which you wish to vote, at least 17 and a half years of age to register, and 18 to vote. Felons can vote, but you must have completed your sentence and paid any fines that are related to that particular sentence. Okay. I'm also going to go and navigate through and show you what that website looks like as well, so you can get an idea of how to navigate through it. And if you ever need to send anyone else to that particular website, then you will be familiar in telling them how to navigate that particular website. So here, I am going to actually go back and go to these websites so that you can see. Okay. So when I was talking about the General Assembly, this is what the Georgia General Assembly looks like. The General Assembly is our House and Senate and state government. And if you navigate here, there's a side for House of Representatives as well as the Senate. You have committees and legislation and laws. Okay, so if we navigate to House of Representatives, you can see who the Speaker of the House, current Speaker of the House is, which is John Burns. If we want to look into representatives, there's a member directory here. They'll tell you which party they're affiliated with, which city they live in, and which district they represent. Okay. And also, if we go to the House of Representatives, we can look at what is actually on the House schedule. Okay. So starting on Monday, you can see the actual schedule for what's going on, which committees are meeting, and when they actually have a floor session. So we're looking at Judiciary Non-Civil meeting at 8 a.m. and this is the location. The floor session will be in the House chamber, and you can actually watch these as they're in progress. You have an Education Curriculum Subcommittee, Insurance, Life, and Health Subcommittee, Health Committee, and these are the locations where they'll be. 341 Capitol Building. And as I said before, video is available here. You have a rules calendar, which you can, well, actually you can't go here now. My bad. I thought that you could, but you can't. Weird, it doesn't go to anything. Okay, but anyway, the rules calendar would be telling you which bills they are trying to actually push through in order to be heard. You have first readers, which means these have been read for the first time into session. You have where you can click and find out the different committee assignments for different legislators. And I'm on the House side, so let's scroll down and see if we recognize any names. The Appropriations Committee, Economic Development Appropriations, Education Appropriations, General Government Appropriations. Oh, here, David Knight is one of our local representatives he's on the Higher Education Committee here. He's actually the chairman of that committee. Scroll some more. And who else do we have? Karen Mathiak is on the Human Resources Appropriations, and she's serving as the vice chairman. So it's very beneficial for you to be able to navigate through and see which committees your representatives are on and things that they are actually responsible for and in charge of. I haven't gone down the whole list because I'm pretty sure they're also appointed to some other committees, but I just wanted to show you exactly how you would navigate to these. And the same thing on the Senate side you can do as well. You can see Senate committees, you can click on them and see who is actually attached to what committee. And if they're serving in a leadership capacity, you can go to all House committees, all Senate committees. You can see their upcoming schedules. and when they're meeting. You can actually look up legislation and laws. You can look on House first readers, Senate first readers, actual votes that have been done, things they have current voted on. So let's go here. So if we're looking at the current session, we go to 16, House Bill 18. It's showing you in green who all voted yay for this particular bill, who voted no, who were no votes, and who were excused. Okay, so you can actually go and click on these representatives and see exactly who they are. If you wanted to look up a particular bill, okay, so this says passage. Let's say we want to go and look up this bill. This session is 16. Say all legislation, current session, House Bill 18. I think that's what it was. But you can come here and look up that particular legislation, or did it come up as 16 too? And see exactly what these are under. Who actually sponsored and introduced these bills. And as I said before, go back and see for the ones that have been marked for passage what your representatives or senators actually voted, if they voted yay or nay on those. There's another tool, and I think it's here. I may have to go back and look for it because I can't remember what I actually clicked on to get to it. That happens. That happens sometimes. Oh, what did I click on? Let me see if I go back. Oh, find my legislator. That's it. That's what I want to show you guys. Okay, so under find my legislator, you also have the option of clicking here to go to the Secretary of State's My Voter page. And that will take you to the elections portal where you can type in your particular information, your first initial, last name, county, your date of birth, and hit submit, which will also show you who your elected officials are, as well as your voter registration status and your past ballots that were cast in different elections. But one of the other things that it does, and I'll show you here, it might have been open states. You can also here type in your email address. I'm sorry, not email. What am I talking about? Your actual address where you live, and click or click current location, and it will also show you who your elected officials are. So for example, I'm going to type in a really old address. And no one lives here. It's actually a church now. So if I type in search by address, okay, so it brings up David Knight, Marty Harbin. At state, federal brings up John Ossoff, Raphael Warnock, Drew Ferguson. Okay. For some reason, Karen Mathiak is missing on here. It might be how I typed in the address. Or we can go to this one, which is Vote Smart, And you can actually enter politician's name. That's who I'm looking for. Okay, so we have Karen Mathiak. Let's see, what do we want to do here? Let's look at her bio. Okay, District 74, Republican. Okay, full name, gender, family, city, religion, education's here, political experience, current legislative committees, okay, former committees, professional experience, religious, civic, and other membership, okay. And you can also go back here and get linked to emailing, contacting her if need be. So let's look at votes. Okay. Oh, it also has a cool tool. You can actually track what she has going on. So key votes. This is showing from 2022, amends the financial aid program to include students with a financial aid gap. Yes, but here's where it gets interesting. Limits discussion of divisive concepts relating to race. She voted yes on House Bill 1084. Passed the House 98 to 71. She was a yes vote. Amends firearm, open carry, and possession laws. Yes. Bill passed 94 to 67. Authorizes Georgia Bureau of Investigation to investigate claims of election fraud. Another yes vote. Okay. Passed 98 to 69. So you can actually see their voting records here and whether they voted yes or no. There is one here for positions too, issue positions. But she did not provide any information on key issues. Speeches. She doesn't have any public statements here. This is who is funding Mathiak. Let's look at the finances. Let's see who her top contributors are. Georgia Chiropractic Association, Georgia Association of Realtors, Georgia Wins, Robert Alpert, Georgia Trial Lawyers Association, Epic Amusement, David Ralston, John Burns, Eric England. Okay, and you can actually see more contributors. So this is a very helpful tool if you want to research any of your local politicians. I just use Karen, but you can also do this for David Knight, Marty Harbin as well. And I'm pretty sure we could do it for yep. I also do it for our congressional representatives as well. So it's a very helpful tool that you can play around with and see exactly how our representatives are representing us in these important votes on legislation. Okay. All right, so just to show you something really cool, when we talk about looking up legislation and laws, um, a lot of you have heard me talk about my time working for a General Assembly, and you can find old legislation here as well. Let's see if it will bring up this particular bill. House Bill 847. Okay. Okay. So, see the current version. Zoom in. Now we'll scroll down. I also have a copy of this too. But this is House Resolution 847. And if you scroll, you might see a name that you recognize there. So yes, we were honored during our time working for the General Assembly. And I always felt this is really cool because I have some place in history at the state capitol. But a lot of people don't realize that my background is actually in political science. I am a political scientist. I graduated with an undergrad degree from Georgia State in political science as well. And then I went on to get my graduate and advanced degrees. But my root is in political science. That is why I'm such an advocate in our local government. That's why I'm such an advocate when it comes to different social issues and things like that. But because I know this system, I'm very familiar with this system. And I know that the only way that we can really fight back is to be educated on the system and learn ways that we can actually implement solutions in infiltrating the system. We can't stand back and continue to be bystanders. We actually have to participate in the process. So that is why you always hear me saying these things about stay involved, get involved, making sure that you're educated and aware of the things that are going on around you. Because yes, the federal government and the Congress is important. Yes, state government is important, but local government, those are the things that affect you every single day. These are the laws that you have to abide by and the things that you're paying for when you step foot out of your door that affect you the most. So it's very, very, very important that we stay engaged and understand exactly what the political process encompasses. And that is why I feel it's always so important to do this seminar to remind people of what that looks like. And also, before I let you guys go, because it has been an hour and I didn't want to take up a ton of time with this, but as a reminder about Empowered, you can go to the App Store and download the app. This is what it will look like. You can see upcoming elections. You can get connected to other entities. This is what it looks like on iPad, iPhone is what it looks like here. You can get connected to your local officials and advocate for different causes. So it's a really good tool to have at your fingertips. And I encourage you to download this, whether it's on your iPhone or whether it's on your Android, as a useful tool for you to have for advocacy. It's a very, very, very cool tool. And in talking about the political process, I want to also make people be aware that we do this November, we do have an election coming up where once again, we will be able to vote for a mayor. So it's very, very important that people stay engaged. It's very, very important that if you are not already registered to vote, that you register to vote. And if you are registered to vote, that you make sure you check your registration so that you don't have anything, hindering you from voting as far as being inactive or if you've been removed from the voter rolls. And as always, you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I don't do this for fun. I do this because it's necessary. I do this because I want to see our people thrive. I do this because I just want to leave the world better than how I found it. And that is why that I continue to do the work that I do. I appreciate all of you guys' support, and I hope to see you all at the next workshop, which will also be next Saturday at 2 p.m. And for this one, this next workshop, we will actually be going over how to get your rights restored, how to get a pardon, or how to get a record restriction, or what we used to call an expungement. So I also look forward to seeing you guys in that workshop as well. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope you all have an awesome weekend. And once again, happy Black History Month. Thank you.